Welcome back to another edition of Coach B Weekly for RMUcolonials.com. I'm Ken Baker, and I'm joined once again by Associate Head Coach and Head Coach in Waiting, Charlie Buscaglia, or as he is respectfully called by team and staff, Coach B. Coach B, last time we talked, you were worried about your team getting comfortable. You came off a couple wins at the end of the non-conference season. You were headed into league play, and you worried about your team relaxing a bit and getting comfortable. Well, based on the results, 2 victories, 2 overwhelming victories to start off Northeast Conference play against Sacred Heart and Wagner. How do you think your team stands right now, and are you comfortable with their comfort level?
Well, I'll never be comfortable. Let's just get that straight. I thought we did a great job of coming out early and coming out with energy and attacking them with the game plan. In the second half, we got lackadaisical and we did get comfortable. We didn't play 40 minutes in both of those games, and even though we had built a nice lead up in both of those, we were at home. It was the first 2 conference games, and if you play for only half the game or 3/4 of the game and you don't finish strong, you're going to run into problems. So we definitely have some things to work on, especially in the second half, and continuing to stay after it with the same kind of intensity and energy and focus as we did in the first half.
Yeah, so you guys do start off 2-0, so certainly you'll take the wins, but some things to work on as well. I want to kind of go and touch on a little bit of an individual basis and a couple milestones that the team hit last week. It seemed about every game, the last 3 games, there's been a milestone passed, but the one I want to talk about right now is Nikki Stamalampro, who became the 20th player in RMU history to reach 1,000 points. But I think more importantly, it looks like she found her stroke last week.
Yeah, we've been working with Anna a lot with, dealing with the ups and downs of, missing shots or not having your best game and then coming back strong. And she really responded to start conference play, coming out and hitting her shot and playing great defense and, being energetic and active, while she's out there. I thought she did a great job of responding, and she's starting to play more now in her speed, and she's not worried about the shots being the thing that brings her up or down. She's doing the other things, and that's what we talked about since she first walked in the door here, doing the other things besides shooting the ball, getting steals, throwing a great pass, being a great talker, a great leader, and that's where I feel she's really elevated herself, not just on scoring, but on being a leader and doing other things.
Yeah, and you talk about those milestones. She's been approaching that for a little while now, and do you think that could be sometimes something that a player gets a little bit focused on, and then once they get past that, so once she gets past this 1,000-point barrier, you can kind of put it behind and you worry about playing basketball again and not necessarily about numbers.
But she didn't mention it to me at all, and none of us really had this anticipation of 1,000. I actually didn't even know until the game had started that this Anna's getting close to 1,000 and the whole situation. So it never really crossed much of our mind. I think our players are really trained to not worry about any individual accolades. They're worried about the team and the win, and that's where we know we got them going in the right direction if that's not a big deal. So, I think Nikki, when she came here, she expected to score 1,000, and when she was approaching it, it wasn't like, anything that was really getting her jittery. I think it was just more her wanting to be more of a contributor to the team and understanding the ways that she can contribute besides scoring.
Yeah, and that certainly seems to be the case with Nikki as well, as we both know her. More worried about the team results more so than individual results, but we're going to keep it on individual results, and certainly a couple things that we cannot overlook, and that's Coach Sal. 212 career victories, now 213, which is an RMU record, and he also gets the 700 career victories. You've been alongside him for, what's it now, 18 years?
Yeah, 18 years total.
18 years alongside him. What's that journey been like, and what's it like for you guys when he achieves something like that, having been on his staff for that long?
Well, I think the biggest thing is being with someone that long and actually 2 programs, being at the former school we were at and now Robert Morris, you see so many things happen in that course of time where a lot of coaches would have had a lot of difficulty overcoming it. Losing a great player to injury, whether it be losing a great recruit that you knew was going to come in and help you, and you're really building your team around, expecting to get. Those are really a lot of the struggles that you go through and over those course of times, and just being able to adjust and survive and get through it, and to continue to to finish the game and continue to finish the season strong. no matter if we won a conference championship, went to the NCAA tournament, or in the NIT, or we didn't make a postseason play, it was very rare over those 18 years to see things be handled on a downward slope going after the season and into the next. It was always on the up. We ended on the up, whether it was our first season here at Robert Morris that, we were struggling and we were trying to change the culture of this program and get a higher level player in and a different attitude. And, even on that season where we went through some miserable stretches of losing by 1 point, 3 points, overtime against teams that were tops in the league and battling, just not having enough to win, to be able to understand how to win yet. To win the last 2 out of 3 games at the end of that season at home in the conference, beating Sacred Heart, who was the #1 team in the conference that year. We were finishing on the up, and then we went into the next season, obviously, and just took off and had the 3rd biggest turnaround in the history of women's basketball. So those are the kind of moments that I remember as he achieved these milestones. Just being able to just always understand that things are going to happen, and as a coach, you have to anticipate problems and know how to handle problems. And that's what he's done really well over those years.
And certainly, 2 huge accomplishments for Coach Sal, 700 career victories, 38 years of coaching. It's just a phenomenal number. Over 430 of those wins on the Division I level, and again, the record holder at Robert Morris now with 213 wins. Moving on, looking ahead, it could be what they term trap games sometimes as you guys get ready to head to Brooklyn. LIU Brooklyn on Monday, St. Francis Brooklyn first on Saturday, but 2 teams that were picked in the bottom of the conference standings. Let's focus on St. Francis Brooklyn first. That's a team you met in the championship game last year, and they lost a lot of players. So it's going to be a whole new team for you guys to scout for.
Of course, and he does a great job. And no matter if they've struggled early on to win games or to have a really strong record going in where you could say, oh, they're 10-2, or they're the type of team that they're going to get better as they go. And he knows how to coach, and he understands on how to get the most out of his kids. And you saw that last year when he got a hold of a senior-laden team where he was able to train those players for that many years. They really responded and understood what it was expected of them. So I'm sure that they're going to have some highs and lows with a young team. But we know going into Brooklyn and going into that place is always a tough battle. And we have to be ready not only to go out there and play well, but to be able to understand that this is conference now, and you're going to have tough adversity when you get on the road. We were at home for 2, and those were great that we won both. But now you have to understand, even when you play hard, even when you play smart, it's still going to be difficult. So nothing's guaranteed. You're going to have to play even better, and you're going to have to go into different environments with different crowd, different noise levels, different depth perceptions, and this will be a big test for us. I expect them to really come out and give us a very, very tough game.
Yeah, and there's one thing when you play in St. Francis Brooklyn over the last 3 years was John Thurston is their head coach. They're going to be well coached, and the Pope Center is a tiny gym. It's unlike a lot of gyms that any of these girls have ever played in, and it is a tough environment. So you always know what you're expecting there, and you're always expecting to be in a fight. LIU Brooklyn, team that wasn't expected to do much, they go out and they knock off Central Connecticut State, who was picked 3rd in the preseason poll. They start off the year 2-0, and they're a bit of a surprise in the league.
No question of surprise. And, I think, the change in coaching staff obviously may have sparked things a little bit, different system, might have, freaked some teams when we first got into conference play because, as you go along year in and year out, teams understand how they play you. And they play with things game in and game out and see how you react sometimes. And then they keep that. As well as a team, a coach. And you get a system down, how you play this team and how you play that team. You might change little things here and there, but you got a kind of a concept. Even though there was a lot of games going into those LIU games, these first 2, I should say, in the conference, those games, you have a lot of learning to do when you go and watch those out-of-conference games. And I'm sure there's things that LIU put in that they didn't put in during the non-conference schedule. So, learning LIU, they came out and they got their 2 wins right off the bat, and I'm sure they did a great job, and we expect them to be very difficult. Obviously they're doing something. I haven't watched them on film because I always go 1 game at a time, but, to be 2-0 in this league, I'm sure they have a lot of excitement over there, and they've sparked a lot of energy, And so, when we get done with that St. Francis of Brooklyn game, I'll learn what they're doing on film. But I'm sure it's some good stuff, and good for them. I mean, it's very important to get off to a nice start in the conference play, and I'm sure they're really riding high on that.
Yeah, and LIU Brooklyn, one of 3 teams tied for first in the conference right now, along with the Colonials and the Bryant Bulldogs. Coach, 4 in a row. Last week you talked about not getting too comfortable. You guys are streaking right now. The outside shooting's come back a bit. How do you grow at this point? What do you work on, and how do you continue to grow going ahead?
Well, always watching the films of the games that you played prior and really taking seriously everything that you've done well and done wrong. Whether you win or lose a game, you got to have a routine. That's just the way I'm built. You come in and you hold yourself accountable to the same standard, whether you won or lost the game. If you didn't do something well in that game, you should be taking it in and going out in the court and working on it 100%, whether you won or lost. And that's how we grow at this point, making sure that we handle success the right way and staying in our routine. If we go out there now and we won 4 in a row, and now the stuff that we didn't do well in the last 2, forget about that. We're winning, and that's all that counts. That kind of attitude will get you beat, and that kind of attitude will stop your growth. We've got to say to ourselves, hey, it's glad we won 2. That's not what we set out to do here. We set out to continue to win each game, and let's not let those 2 games affect us to win the next game. So I expect the team now, if they're going to grow in the right direction, to come out here every day, when we do our drills, when we do our up and down stuff, when we put new stuff in, to have total focus and be their hardest critic. Hold themselves accountable and don't ever settle. That's what I'm expecting to grow.
Yeah, we got off to a good start. The team has grown through non-conference play. I think we've all seen how much the team has transformed since that first week of play, and getting off to 2 wins to start off NEC play is certainly on the right foot. But now it's a matter of continuing to grow and continuing to improve, and we'll see just how much the Colonials have improved as they head to Brooklyn this weekend. Robert Morris taking on St. Francis Brooklyn on Saturday, and then they will head about a mile down the road to LIU Brooklyn for a game on Monday. Well, thank you for joining us once again for another edition of Coach B Weekly, and we look forward to talking to you next week.